Welcome to this weekend's feast day, Saints Peter and Paul. Peter and Paul, the two of the great founding fathers of the church. And I like to ask this question to get a little stimulation or opinions going. Who do you think is the greater saint? Saint Peter or Saint Paul? Well, I'm going to give you my opinion at the end. What's your opinion, at least, at the end? St. Peter and St. Paul, somebody tried to say that a real connoisseur of music, classical music, was someone who could listen to the William Tell Overture without thinking about the Lone Ranger. Someone also said a real classical connoisseur of the scriptures is someone who could read today's gospel and not think of St. Peter's in Rome, the popes, croziers and mitres and bishops and priests. A real connoisseur of scriptures. And these scriptures deal with Peter and Paul. And that one with Peter, of course, is that you are Peter, you are a rock. And on this rock, I'll build my church. Couldn't help but think of one morning somebody called and said, look at the Today program on there. They're having Archbishop Dolan in New York, and he's in the middle of St. Peter's. And he quotes this very passage. You are Peter, and on this rock, I'll build my church. In all his regalia, the Archbishop looks up to Michelangelo's dome and says, rock. Look at what Michelangelo has done. The church. Well, I said, baloney. No matter how beautiful Michelangelo's dome is, and I walked it up it 5 times, that's not church. Church are the people of God, and that's church. And so sometimes we think of St. Peter's, Pope, and so forth. That's what it's really all about. I'm sorry. I don't think that is just what it's all about. Peter and Paul, these were simple men chosen by Christ, one eyeball to eyeball, another through vision, on the road to Damascus, Paul. And they were simple men, but they were also sinful men. You know, Paul was feared drastically. Paul persecuted the church. He locked up the early Christians, and he was the opposite and fought against any Jew who tried to start practicing this new way of Judaism. And by golly, he did his job, and he was feared, a sinful man. Peter was that one on the night before he died. Well, he not only followed Christ for a while, but 3 times Peter denies Jesus, even knowing Jesus, and swears that he did not know the man. Peter and Paul, simple men, sinful men, but powerful men who died in the end teaching this message of Jesus Christ. We don't know too much about how they died, but they believe that Peter, he was crucified upside down around 64, either early 60s or the late 60s AD. And he wanted to be crucified upside down because he was not worthy to be killed this way like Christ. Paul is even a little bit more nebulous as far as they believed, died around the same time, early 60s or the late 60s AD. And they believed that Paul was beheaded. And they couldn't crucify Paul because he was a Roman. And they couldn't do that to Romans. So, like our courts and so, they were very humane. They just beheaded him. Who do you like? Peter or Paul? Well, I'll tell you whom I like. I like Paul. And I like Paul because he takes the basic message of Jesus Christ, which we need so much today, and he universalizes it. He goes to the whole world to preach Jesus, not just to Jews, but to all, with this message from Jesus for all. And so I think Paul epitomizes what universal means, or what the word Catholic means. This message of Jesus is for all, and not a few. Peter, he takes the message of Jesus, and in a sense, the Peter style becomes institutionalized. And it really probably was not because of Peter, but they made Peter the institutional head as such, using this reading that we have in the gospel this morning. You are Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church. And so that has developed. And so sometimes I just feel like this institution's too powerful, too hierarchical, too rigid, and also, as we know throughout history, too sinful. And I just find when Paul was converted, he was totally converted. We don't get any negatives. Well, we probably don't get them from Peter either, but Peter, the Petrine church or the institution, we get some of those negatives. Well, that's my opinion. I like Paul. Oh well, but hey, we have a new Pope, Francis. And I like Francis, a successor of Peter in this church today. Well, maybe I'm starting to change my mind. How about you? Well, whom do you like? Peter or Paul? End of homily. Have a good day.